A Life After April, Chapter 12, Risking Ruin, written by Gabriel Ndayishimiye. They said it was a phase the way people say adolescence is a phase, or grief, as if desire could be outgrown, as if longing were a temporary affliction and not a pulse beneath the skin, steady, insistent. As if I would wake up one morning and slip back into the shape of the woman they had always known, the woman who did what was expected. But I knew even then that I would not. Temporary. Something to be waited out, endured, corrected with time and distance and a steady hand. They said I was lost, unmoored, acting out, the way women do when they begin to realize that the life they built was never truly theirs. They said I was ruining myself, as if I were something pristine to begin with, as if ruin were not already written into the architecture of my body, as if I had not already spent decades disassembling myself piece by piece for the comfort of others. They did not understand what it meant to be invisible, to be a woman whose skin and voice and hunger had been made ornamental, something to be admired but not touched, acknowledged but not heard, to exist as a decoration, a proof of someone else's status, a quiet presence in the background of a life built for others. To be observed but never truly seen, expected to remain poised, contained, never demanding, never needing. To be a wife in a marriage where touch was perfunctory, an obligation exchanged with the same mechanical precision as paying a bill. To wake up next to a man who did not see me, not really, not in the way that sets fire to the air between two people, not in the way that makes a body hum. They did not understand the kind of loneliness that lingers even in a shared bed, the way silence can stretch itself across years, how a woman can live a whole life as a ghost and still be expected to say thank you. They told me I was lucky, that I should be grateful. That desirability is a currency a woman spends down to nothing, that I should take what was left and hold on to it, no matter how small, no matter how cold. But when I lay beneath these men, young, dark-skinned, unrepentantly alive, I did not feel ruined. I did not feel lost. I did not feel old, or discarded, or reckless. I felt like someone who had, for the first time in years, stepped into a room and been seen. Because it was not just about the heat of their hands, the hunger in their eyes, the way they spoke my name like it was something worth repeating. It was about the erasure being undone, the years peeling back, the small act of being called back into my own skin. It was about remembering that I was still here, that I had always been here, that I had never been lost at all. And yet even as I reclaimed myself, there was the knowing, the whisper of guilt curling around my ribs like ivy, the weight of expectation, of propriety, of the story I had been told I should live pressing against me. The knowledge that every choice had its consequence, that freedom, even when long overdue, is never without cost. I saw it in the way my sister Angela's voice tightened when we spoke, in the clipped responses, the unspoken disapproval. There was a time when we told each other everything. Late-night calls dissecting the smallest details of our lives. Laughter that tumbled freely, untouched by hesitation. When I got married, she was the first to toast my happiness, squeezing my hands with a fierce kind of joy. But now there was distance where warmth used to be, restraint where there had once been ease. Now when I spoke, she listened with the weight of judgment pressing between us, as if trying to understand a language she no longer recognized. "What are you doing?" she finally asked one evening, when I called her after too many weeks of silence. "Living," I said. She exhaled, something tired and frayed. "And after that? What then?" I had no answer, because I did not know. Because for the first time in a long time, I was moving without the burden of a plan, without the security of a script. Because sometimes, finding yourself means stepping into the unknown, means risking ruin for the possibility of something more. Perhaps there would be regret. Perhaps there would be heartbreak. Perhaps I would wake up one day and feel the cold absence of everything I had left behind, the weight of David's quiet sighs, Angela's unspoken disappointment, the empty space where certainty used to be. But perhaps, too, there would be something else, something that made all of it worth it. But for now, there was this. The feeling of breath filling my lungs, the weight of a gaze that did not look through me but into me, the quiet, radical truth that I was here, I was real, and I was mine. I knew what people thought when they saw us together, the white women whispered. They called me desperate, called me a fetishist, called me a woman who could not handle her own decline. The white men looked at me with something harder, a mix of rage and dismissal, as if I had broken an unspoken contract, as if my body had been promised to them and I had defected. The black women looked at me with something else, anger maybe, or pity, or a quiet kind of knowing, as if they had seen this before, as if they understood the gravity of desire, the way it can undo and remake a woman at the same time, as if they knew that longing, once acknowledged, is a thing that does not let you go. Maybe they resented me for taking what had always been theirs, or maybe they pitied me for thinking that touch alone could rewrite history, or maybe, just maybe, they knew that I was chasing something I could never quite catch. And the black men? They rarely looked at me at all, because they knew what this was. They knew that I knew what this was. A reversal, a reclamation, a quiet defiance of every rule written in the soft murmur of polite society. David had once called me reckless. It was at a dinner party, the air thick with the scent of roasted garlic and slow-cooked lamb, the hum of conversations settling into a polite murmur around us. My wine glass was sweating onto the linen napkin beneath it, the stem damp between my fingers. I remember the way he leaned in, voice low enough that only I could hear, his breath laced with the crisp edge of a French Bordeaux. "It's unbecoming," he had said when he thought no one else could hear. "You don't want to be that woman." "What woman?" I had asked, though I already knew. "The one who embarrasses herself, who makes people uncomfortable." He had meant white people, of course, white people at restaurants, white people at bookstores, white people at Whole Foods who saw me with a man half my age and looked for evidence of coercion or collapse. He had meant them, but he had also meant himself. I had spent years with men like David, men who made their want feel like duty, who touched me with the same measured efficiency as they did everything else in their lives. Sex with David had been quiet, careful, performed under a sheet, as if the air itself needed to be shielded from my body. As if my flesh was something to be tolerated rather than desired, something better left unseen, untouched, a duty to be fulfilled rather than an indulgence to be savoured. I had felt like an artifact in those moments, preserved, protected, but never truly alive. He had loved me, in his way, but love and desire are not the same thing. The first time I undressed in front of Malik, I braced myself for hesitation, for the flinch of disappointment. Instead, he stared. His eyes swept over me, not with judgment, not with the distant appraising gaze of a man calculating depreciation, but with something closer to awe. "Damn," he had whispered, half to himself, half to me, and I had swallowed something thick and hot in my throat, something I had been holding down for years. Desire, yes, but also fear. Fear of being seen and then dismissed. Fear of what it meant to want, to reach, to claim. Fear that the years had made me invisible, that the weight of time had erased the woman I used to be. And now, in that moment, under his gaze, all of it threatened to rise to the surface. Because when I traced the back of his neck, when I spoke his name softly into the dark, when I let my hands explore the unfamiliar textures of hair and muscle and scent, I was not taking. I was allowing myself to be present, to be wanted, to exist in a space where desire was not obligation but reciprocity, where I could meet someone in the rawness of the moment and be met in return. A woman does not become a woman until she knows what it means to be hungry, not the polite, manageable kind of hunger that can be ignored, but the deep, aching kind that gnaws at the bones, the kind that shapes a life, that drives a person to take what she has been told she cannot have. It is the hunger of being overlooked, of being told to be grateful, of learning that the world prefers women who do not ask for too much. And then, one day, she does. And nothing is ever the same again. I had spent my whole life starving. And now I was eating, and I did not care if the whole world watched.